Back to life, back to reality. Carolina Panthers back to life. New Orleans Saints back to reality. Dave, what do you think?
I think you might be onto something, especially with the Saints being back to reality.
Oh no, I don't want to hear that.
Well, listen, Eric McCoy left. You talked about offensive line injuries. So Eric McCoy left very early in the game against Philadelphia. And then Jalen Carter, the Eagles' awesome defensive lineman. I'm using awesome loosely, I guess, but he was awesome today. Really started to wreak havoc, and it impacted how the Saints offense was maneuvering. And I can't help but think what was the biggest thing I said about why the Saints were rolling early on through the first 2 weeks of the season? It's their offensive line. Cesar Ruiz left for a little bit in the game. He came back in. He wasn't at 100%. It's an issue. And so I wonder if McCoy's injury is serious and they can't get that offensive line right, then we're going to get this version of Derek Carr more often than not. That's reality. Carolina had a great game against the Raiders, and their back was against the wall, and Andy Dalton took over, and Dalton was phenomenal. And I don't know if this is going to be the new – I don't think they've gotten, the green mushroom from Mario to go and have an extra life now. I still think that they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. They just happen to play one of the other worst teams in the league in week number 3.
Yeah, I mean, how seriously should we be taking Deontay Johnson? Right? Is he a must start now?
Oh, he's at least a number 3 wide receiver.
I think we had him ranked as a number 3 this week, didn't we?
Somewhere in that range. And you know what? Heath buys are coming up. He'll be a number 2 receiver. And if this target volume keeps going, then he'll number 2 receiver at minimum.
So what about, just to compare the two teams, Rashid Shaheed, who had a bagel. I wanted it, by the way, I was going to have a bagel this morning. They were so moldy. It was disgusting. I had to throw up some bagels.
Again, great information.
Yeah, thank you. Bagel for Rashid Shaheed on 5 targets.
Bagel for Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah. Or Deontay Johnson, rest of season.
This game should make you encouraged with Deontay Johnson. How many total targets? I can look it up in about 4 seconds.
31.
14 for Deontay Johnson.
Well,
8 catches, 122 yards. This is his best game of the year, but wouldn't surprise me in the least if he started having games with 13, 14 PPR points. That is a number 2 wide receiver, not even a number 3.
Okay, that did not answer the question. So Rashid Shaheed or the moldy bagel?
I answered it. It's Deontay.
Oh, okay.
I'm more encouraged by Deontay now after this week. And Shaheed had a couple of deep balls that were knocked away at the end.
Heath seems mad. He's not talking.
I'm not mad. I'm just
He's nervous. His Chiefs are about to play.
Disappointed.
Was that?
Why are you disappointed? What did I do?
There's some people in the chat that are very upset at me for telling them to sit Juwan Jennings. And I don't really feel like anybody liked Juwan Jennings.
Jamie had him 37th. I got to give Jamie credit for that. And Jamie talked about him on Tuesday in the waiver wire show. He finished as wide receiver 37, right?
Very close. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry that Juwan Jennings was so good and he's on your bench.
I started him.
Now people are going to pick him up and they're going to hope for more. And then 2 or 3 weeks from now, when Debo's back and George Kittle is back, he'll drop.
Well, maybe it might not even take that. Let's be honest. He scored 3 fewer fantasy points today than he scored last year.
Wow.
All right, I got to take a break, but we will talk more about Jennings a little bit later, and we'll have more back to life, back to reality, back to the show. Okay, back to life, back to reality. Amari Cooper back to life with 7 catches, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns against the Giants. Jameson Williams back to reality, 1 catch on 1 catch for 9 yards on 3 targets for Jameson Williams. Jared Goff threw only 23 passes in this game, but Heath, Cooper back to life, Jameson back to reality. Who do you like better rest of season?
I like Cooper better rest of season. And I think when David Njoku's not there and you're facing the New York Giants, you should expect Amari Cooper to have a great game. Although the Giants defense was spectacular today. Congratulations on the big win. It's going to be an awesome 12th pick this year. And I don't really want to get too down on JMO for having a bad week, because I do think his profile is to be like a Tyler Lockett who's going to win you probably 6 or 7 weeks and put up a few of these.
Okay. Well, also we'll reevaluate him if Laporta misses time. It's a low ankle sprain for Laporta, which is good news. Dave, Brock Purdy back to life. Baker Mayfield back to reality. Mayfield with 10.5 fantasy points against the Broncos. See, this is why I sat him. I knew they'd have a big lead and he wouldn't have to throw. Baker Mayfield with a bad game against the Broncos. Purdy with a huge game. 30, almost 32 fantasy points at the Rams. What do you make of those two? Who do you like rest of season?
I'm not ready to say that I like Purdy better than Baker Mayfield rest of season, but I'm super impressed with how Purdy played against the Rams. And it's the Rams. It's not one of the best defenses in the league by any stretch of the imagination, but going into this game without Kittle, without Debo, and he was just an absolute beast. Made some great throws. They needed him in a big way to come through to at least build a lead in the game. I don't think he's the reason why they lost the game. And he had that connection with Juwan Jennings. It would be nice if he could build that connection with Brandon Ayuk. And he gave Ayuk the opportunity, 10 targets in that game for Ayuk. I think it's good news for Purdy moving forward. However, you know what the MO of this 49ers offense is. They like to run. They like to be balanced. They don't want Brock Purdy throwing a ton of passes like he ended up doing. And
only 30.
It's like a ton.
Are we buying low on all the holdout wide receivers that are just absolutely killing our fantasy teams?
Great point.
You could if you wanted to, but I'm worried that they're you can't. Yes, you can buy low. I don't know why it took me.
No, I'm glad you brought.
Purdy only had 30 pass attempts, but he also had 10 carries for 41 yards, and that's out of character for him.
Yeah. All right, last one, Heath. Back to Heath. Derrick Henry back to life. Henry with 25 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 23-yard catch at Dallas. James Conner back to reality. Conner with his first stinker, 10 touches, 25 yards, 3.6 PPR 3.5 PPR fantasy points, I guess, against a very good run defense in Detroit. But yeah, Henry versus Conner, best game yet for Henry and by far the worst for Conner.
Yeah, I'd probably take Henry rest of season. We liked Henry more for the season before the year. We talked about it. There's going to be games where the Ravens build multi-touchdown leagues, and those are going to be the Derrick Henry games. And this was a game that was a 1-point spread, so maybe we didn't necessarily expect this would be one of those, but it turned out to be. As excited as Jacob Gibbs was about the Arizona Cardinals offensive game plan last week, I was disgusted watching the Cardinals today.
Oh, how come?
Kyler had a bad game.
Kyler had a bad game, but it seemed like we were back to a lot of Marvin Harrison on the sideline. And they had some 2-man game going on with Trey McBride and Michael Wilson. And I don't know if
what that means, Marvin Harrison on the sideline.
It was like week 1. It was just him going up and down the sideline.
Right.
Not doing much across the middle of the field. One of the teams has an offensive scheme called the numbers are lava, but they run everything between the numbers. And it kind of looked like he was playing the numbers or lava, but he was just outside of the numbers.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, he came through with 11 targets and a touch, 64 yards and a touchdown, I think, for Harrison. But yeah, disappointing. The Cardinals scored 13 points. I think they lost 20-13 against the Niners.